All right, Alabama needed some help in the defensive backfield, and they go and get some help in the defensive backfield.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson, that's me. Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. I'll talk about FanDuel in just a bit. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. And sorry we missed yesterday, but Jimmy had to get his air conditioning worked on. That's how technical unsavvy we are. If Jimmy's having one tech thing done, he cannot do another tech thing. So, Jimmy, Alabama got a commitment from Deshaun Jones from Wake Forest. About 6'1"-ish, 185-ish. They needed some experience back there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, they have two guys, right? I mean, that were essentially left. I mean, Malachi Moore can count, but I'm really going cornerbacks here. Jaleel Hurley, who is a great talent, and then Damani Jackson, who's played a lot for USC, but hasn't played a lot for us. And other than that, we got a lot of freshmen. So we needed to address this. And one of the ways we've addressed it is Deshaun Jones.
Yeah, I think in so many ways. Look, I mean, I guess some might have gone into this portal season, Luke, thinking, oh, well, we'll just get Will Johnson from Michigan. Well, why would any projected first-round pick enter the portal? I mean, it's only because you're miserable where you are. Michigan. Money. But I don't think Alabama would be, even under DeBoer, who's going to be more aggressive NIL-wise. Brian Kelly's taken some heat for what he said the other day about expensive players in the portal. But basically what he said was Nick Saban's position on NIL for sure. And I think pretty sure how most, like Kirby, I don't think Brian Kelly's position is any different than Kirby Smart or Kalen DeBoer, in terms of, and I think people mistook what he said. I thought what he's saying was pretty obvious, which is we will pay market value. We will pay market value. This is what defensive linemen cost. This is what linebackers cost. This is what quarterbacks cost. We'll pay that. But if you go into the portal trying to get super rich and trying to break the market or reset the market, you can forget it. We're not going to do that. And I think that's how virtually everybody approaches it, except for the teams that are like, oh, to heck with it. We're just going to go on a mad spending spree and try to buy our way to the playoff semifinals. And we'll see if those teams have any success. So far, that hasn't worked, by the way. But teams are still trying it. But anyway, back to Deshaun.
Well, and wait a minute. Now, let me say this. Let me say this about that. I think what will happen is there are some teams that will do that. And, I'm not calling out anybody, but it probably rhymes with Cole Sis or Ohio State or maybe even Auburn to a lesser degree. I don't know. But I think their philosophy, and again, this is me theorizing, is that, okay, let's overspend today so that we don't have to overspend tomorrow. And in fact, they probably won't overspend because they can't overspend tomorrow. Now, Ohio State, it may not be an issue. They got plenty of money. They got like 2 NIL foundations or something weird like that. But if you're some other school that's much smaller that doesn't quite have as much success historically, like an Ole Miss or a Missouri, and you decide, hey, I'm going to spend a lot right now. Well, your hope is that you spend a lot right now, your brand increases, the trust in high school recruits and other recruits increases, and they come to your program, and you don't have to spend as much because you have that sort of that Alabama discount or that LSU discount or whatever. Or you don't do well, you fall on your face with spending all this money, and then people don't want to pony up to you. So I think it's going to be, I can't spend as much coming up soon, either because things are going really well or things fell apart.
Yeah. I'm sure everybody kind of does it a different way. I don't think there's 2 ways to do it. The overspenders and we just do it on a set budget. There's probably 1,000 ways, and then exceptions to every rule. Quarterbacks cost more money than the other positions. I mean, I think that's become extremely apparent, and everybody knows that going in, and everybody knows what they got to spend to get, a big, well-known quarterback. But I think in the end, I always tend to think Nick Saban's the smartest guy in the room. Now, Saban had some advantages in that there was a Saban discount out there. I think players were willing to take less to play for Nick Saban because they knew the long-term payoff, and we're probably not getting that with DeBoer. That's why we're being a little more aggressive. But by being more aggressive, that just means paying market value. Market value means, hey, out there's a general cost for this position or that position or a 5-star at this position. And I think what Brian Kelly is saying is we're going to stick to what the market is, but we're not going to overpay. We don't care that you think that you're a real special player and deserve more or should cost more. We pay what we pay. And if you don't like it, then go play somewhere else. And I actually think that even though he's been criticized, because some people took it as to say he's not paying NIL money or he's not paying enough. Have you seen their recruiting class? Of course they are. But regardless, back to Deshaun Jones, which is far more important, who probably wasn't super costly, but I would imagine market value for a defensive back in the portal, I think would be a fair guess as to what it took. And I think Alabama did real well here in the sense, Luke, like you said, they needed an experienced cornerback. That's what they were looking for, an experienced corner. Well, here's a kid who started for 2 years in Power 5 football. Really been a starter at 2 years, played in the ACC games, started against Missouri in the bowl game 2 years ago, which was a win for Wake Forest, by the way. Good player, but people don't need to oversell it. I mean, he was not an all ACC player. He didn't make ACC. I just looked it up, by the way, this morning, Luke. They have a first team, second team, and third team by coaches and media. He didn't make first, second, third team, or honorable mention. So let's not pretend that Deshaun Jones is something that he's not. He's also draft eligible, and notice he didn't enter the NFL draft. This is a kid that's got more work to do. The one that I compare him to, Luke, I think this is what we need to hope for, in my opinion. Tyler Steen. Remember for Vanderbilt, the offensive lineman? He didn't come to Alabama with all SEC honors. He came from a program that didn't win a lot of football games, and not any Alabama fans, even though he played in the SEC, knew who he was. But he came here and he was good, and he's in the NFL right now, and probably in part because of the year he spent at Alabama. And he was a good player. I think Alabama fans should hope that Deshaun Jones is the cornerback version of Tyler Steen, and I think he can be. Now, I also think there's the possibility that one of our superstar 5-stars like Zay Mincy or Zabian Brown beats him out at some point. That could happen. They could beat out Damani Jackson. Let's be honest about Damani, too. He is experienced. He played a big-time USC, but didn't play great. I mean, there's a lot of tape of Damani giving up some receptions. Wasn't a super player. Now, there's reasons. It's hard to play on a team that's giving up 50 points a week and look good at cornerback. But anyway, I just want people to be excited about landing Deshaun Jones because that's what Alabama was looking for. And secondly, not have crazy expectations. This isn't Kool-Aid McKinstry or Terrion Arnold or Will Johnson.
Yeah, and like you said, I think the best point in there is if you come to Alabama, you're going to get more exposure, and you're going to be playing with better people on defense. So your game will probably be upped as well. So therefore, it may
probably better coached.
Better coached. So again, I'm not mad that you're not making all ACC at Wake Forest because the guys around you aren't as good as the guys that are about to be around you. So, and anyway, we need to talk about Yahoo Finance. The best way that I can sell you on Yahoo Finance is to tell you my father, who is a brilliant man, but is Jimmy Stein level tech savvy, not good. And he uses Yahoo Finance. That's how easy it is. He loves it. He keeps up with all his stuff, and he's got a lot of stuff. And so he just keeps up with all of it there. He goes a roundabout way of getting to the site. He keeps the site open at all times on his computer because he's scared he will never be able to get to it again. Because again, that's his lack of tech savviness. But he can operate the site with ease because it's so easy. He just can't get the websites very easy. But this is literally my best way to sell it, that my dad can operate it. I don't know what else to tell you, but wouldn't it be great if you could see all your investment and retirement accounts in one place? That's what he's using it for. Shoot, that's what I use it for. I've got a 401k. I've got kids' college funds. I got some other things set up for me and for the kids. And I use Yahoo Finance because it's so easy. With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts. It doesn't have to all be with just one account. That's what's great. And you can consolidate it into one hub and have access to expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. Let's get straight to the point. You want to grow your portfolio to deal with the rising cost of inflation, to pay off your debt or your mortgage or whatever, pretty much anything standing in the way of you and financial freedom. With Yahoo Finance, you can get access to real news and data and tools that you need in order to reach that financial freedom. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. That much is true. I'm telling you right now, whether you're a seasoned investor or you're looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. Securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the right look at your wealth in its entirety. For the comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor. That's yahoofinance.com. The number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. So there's some other potential portal additions. I think Alabama's been crystal balled for the Michigan State offensive lineman. We've talked about him a little bit on here. I'll let you go a little further. I did think it was interesting. ESPN that today came out with their ranking the spring NCAA football transfer portal classes. You know, boy, isn't all this transfer portal stuff, isn't it great for places like ESPN, though? It gives them something else to completely talk about. They don't have to make up out of thin air. But they have Alabama with the number 5 class. And it is cheating a little bit because we do include Caden Proctor. It's cheating, but it's not. I mean, Caden Proctor actually left and he came back, so I guess it counts. Obviously, they also talk about Cameron Howard, who's going to be coming in playing in the defensive backfield as well. They don't even mention Deshaun Jones, who just joined. I mean, because he just joined yesterday. I also thought it was kind of interesting. They had Auburn at number 6. They had Oklahoma, who's in the SEC, at number 4. They had I'm trying to think any other SEC teams, but I don't see any. And then there's Washington at 10. I mean, because we are linked with Washington now as well. So anyway, I just thought that was good. But talk about the other potential portal candidates that are still out there, Jimmy.
Yeah, there's a couple. BOL, we are optimistic. I guess you'd say Alabama hopeful and optimistic based on the great work of BOL and Andrew Bone. Does a lot of digging here, and Gino Vandermeer is and I'm not sure I'm saying that right, but he's from Michigan State. He played for Coach Cap up there. He's an experienced player, and really who you're looking to replace on the offensive line is James Brockermeyer, who was going to be most likely the number 2 center and maybe a guy that could play some at guard if you needed him, and sort of being the one older, mature, experienced backup. Well, you lost him, so you're looking to replace Brockermeyer, and Gino from Michigan State will be outstanding. Here's a kid who's actually started 8 games. He's got a lot more experience playing in the games than Brockermeyer would have, bigger guy than Brockermeyer. More importantly, Luke, he has played guard in the games and has played center at practice. So he's a guy I would project right now that should he pick Alabama, and we're cautiously optimistic that's the case, then you're talking about the number 2 center most likely. So that would be a big pickup for Alabama, because if he's not the number 2 center, then the number 2 center is a true freshman like Joe Ionata or Will Sanders, or maybe a redshirt freshman like Rock Montgomery, who's actually the top backup guard right now. Now you'd be, if he's got to spend some time at center learning that. So Gino Vandermeer would be a big addition in terms of what Alabama really needs. And again, at BOL, we're cautiously optimistic there. The other one is King Mack. Oh, the safety. Who's he replacing? I just think depth-wise, probably not an immediate starter, though he would contend. King Mack would actually be one of the most talented pickups in the portal. I mean, of all of the guys Alabama signed in the portal this cycle, King Mack would be close to the top in terms of gifted kids. There's just not an easy automatic opportunity at safety because Alabama's pretty set there with Malachi Moore, Keon Sabb, and Devontae Smith in those 3 safety spots. It's kind of hard to imagine King Mack getting in the lineup, but he would be a major contender to start in 2025. This is a national top 100 player who played right away at Penn State, not so much as a starter or in the games, but he played as a freshman and again was a national top 100 player and a really high value prospect. Again, same thing at BOL. Bone and Hastings and those guys, did a lot of work on this, and they're predicting King Mack to Alabama. That one's a little more. A lot of schools want King Mack. I mean, he's a high value target in the portal on talent alone, and at Alabama, probably not an immediate starter, but he would push maybe Smitty, maybe even Keon Sabb. I mean, this kid can really play. So I think he'd really be replacing just kind of the overall depth that Alabama lost at safety, Tony Mitchell, Peyton Woodyard, and the other safeties that sort of, Jake Pope even, that portaled out.
Well, that's a good question. So if you could, would you rather have King Mack, Jake Pope, or Jake Pope / Tony Mitchell, or King Mack? That's the best way to put it. I'd probably go King Mack.
King Mack, and I say that I think Tony Mitchell was a more higher ranked prospect, but Tony Mitchell had been on campus for a full year, and let's be honest, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people out there listening might not have had the highest opinion of Bray Hubbard. I do. I mean, I think Bray Hubbard might be a future starter at Alabama. Well, Bray Hubbard was ahead of Tony Mitchell, so that's where Tony Mitchell was on the depth chart. He was a 3, throughout the spring. And the 2s were Peyton Woodyard, a true freshman, and Bray Hubbard. So in that sense, I think Woodyard's even a bigger loss than Tony Mitchell. Though I think Tony Mitchell will be a good player in time. I think he needs to be in the right scheme in the right spot. Tony Mitchell was really turning into a big dude. I'm not going to be completely shocked, Luke, if he ends up a linebacker. I mean, he's over 200 pounds. And again, athletic, probably a good Husky candidate had he stayed at Alabama long term. But again, Bray Hubbard was ahead of him. Peyton Woodyard was ahead of him when he left. So I would say King Mack above those guys. And the biggest safety Alabama lost, obviously, is Caleb Downs. But, that was a Saban retirement thing. That wasn't really,
by the way,
new normal.
Somebody out there may go, well, why didn't you say King Mack or Caleb Downs? Because nobody on this planet is going to say they wouldn't rather have Caleb Downs if they watch football. So I'm happy that Alabama could potentially get King Mack. I have no delusions of grandeur. It is a step down. Whatever Alabama did in the portal is a step down from Caleb Downs. That is not a shot at anybody Alabama's getting. And I don't think anybody that Alabama's getting needs to take it as a shot, even though some people probably would take it that way, like, well, I can play with anybody. Okay. I mean, I'm glad you have that attitude. I appreciate it. I'm not mad at you. Come in cocky as you want to be. I'm down with it. But I'm not Caleb Downs with it. Yeah, I just came up with that on my own.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I think Caleb will be a first-round pick in 2 years. I think he's awesome. The funny thing is they're doing those rewatches. I've just recently watched Texas last week, watching South Florida this week. Texas, Sark's really good. Sark went right after Caleb Downs. Caleb gave up some plays in that Texas game, but hey, he was a true freshman in game 2. It's just a good example of even when you're a superstar true freshman, you're going to give up plays, especially early.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a good player, no doubt.
All right, let's talk FanDuel. It's winner take all time in the NBA. The Knicks pulled out another big one last night. And it's also winner take all time in the NHL. And I'll have to take your word for it because I don't watch hockey. And FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot a big-time shot and one that counts for you in your wallet. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook. All right, so I want to talk about.
You mentioned hockey. We do have a hockey reference here. Before we were locked on, when we were talking Tuscaloosa, our intro was read by Katie Ingleson, former Alabama Crimsonette and future sports journalism superstar. Katie Ingleson did our opening for the early iterations of our show. She's now
not to mention perfect 10 in terms of in the looks department over there.
She's an attractive
easy
lady
on the eyes, as they say.
She is now the sideline reporter. I don't know if you call. I guess that's what they call them. She's the sideline reporter for the Florida Panthers in the NHL.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm. So what do you call them? Side rink. She's a side rink reporter. No, she's the. Yeah. So she.
You're asking me. I don't even know how they keep score. Do they even have touchdowns?
Yeah. So she's on. The Panthers have. They're on TV every single night with whatever cable thing that is, Bally or whoever it is that does every night Panthers, and now they're in the playoffs. So I follow. And Katie occasionally listens to the show, and still a big Alabama fan, and moving up in the industry. But yeah, whenever anybody says NHL right now, my favorite team's the Panthers because I'm reading Katie's tweets all the time about the Panthers, and her sister's engaged to a Panther player.
Wow. Wonder how they met. Okay, so
no, totally unrelated. Funny that you said that. It wasn't related to Katie's employment at all. True.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, this is how little I like hockey. I'm not even any more curious about it.
Well, the Panthers are good. So the Panthers are good. I think they made it to the finals last year.
All right. So CBS, we talked about ESPN coming out with their way too early top 25. CBS has done their own top 25. It is pretty similar. The first four are exactly the same, except I think that ESPN had Texas 3 and Oregon 4, and CBS has Oregon 3 and Texas 4. But then there's a big jump at number 5, big difference at number 5, I should say, because Alabama is at number 5. And okay, I'm down with that. And this is exactly where they had them. They're doing this post-spring, and they had a pre-spring, and they're saying post-spring, Alabama's still at number 5. I'm with that. This is where I think Alabama should be. And I know you were talking off air, and I believe you mentioned it in the last podcast, but it's worthy of talking about it again, that you're a little conflicted here because, like me, when you see these, and I think this is true for every fan base, because we lose perspective when we talk about our own teams a lot of times. And you see Alabama at 9 like we did in the ESPN, we're like, jerks. The audacity of you to put Alabama at 9, sir. How dare you? And then there's also that side of us that's like, well, I mean, we got a tough schedule and we have a lot of questions and we got a new staff. So, yeah, that makes sense. If it were anybody else but Alabama that we pull for, we'd be like, yeah, that's probably about where they should be. But we are so used to getting the Bama bump in the polls too. It's deserved. It's earned. I believe it is real and it is deserved. I believe both things can be true. And I think it's honest. But I'm looking at Alabama at 5 here. And I swear, Jimmy, you know what sensible Luke, which doesn't really come out that often. He's like Punxsutawney Phil. He doesn't show his face very much. But reasonable Luke has said, you know what I'd really probably do is split the difference. I'd probably have us about 7 with a bullet, not 7 with an anchor. Like, I feel like we have a better chance to move up than we do to fall down. But I feel like if I were ranking this completely sensibly and without crimson tinted glasses, I would probably put us right at 7.
I'm not sure. I just know I have 2 conflicting things, just like you. My conflicting things are I like seeing Alabama low. I think it serves the program right now for our players to have a chip on their shoulder. No one believes in you. They think Alabama's dead and gone. Saban's gone. Alabama's sunk. It's over. So part of me is like, I would love to pull up these things and see Alabama at 15. I would love it because I want the players to have that chip on their shoulder, that no one believes in them and they're getting zero respect, and that the Alabama of yesteryear is gone. So I kind of want Alabama to be at 15, but then I pull up these polls and I see it's who they have ahead of Alabama, and it gets under my skin. I get a little hacked off over it when I see teams ahead of Alabama that I know have no business being ahead of Alabama. So I get upset when I look at these because I'm like, I do want to be 15, but you can't put Missouri ahead of Alabama. I get upset when Ole Miss is ahead of Alabama. We haven't lost to Ole Miss since 2015, and we play them every year. Why did Ole Miss pass Alabama in the offseason? Why? Because they signed a few guys out of the portal? I mean, why is Alabama behind a team we've beaten 9 times in a row?
Here's my answer. Because of schedule. And
yeah, I mean, Ole Miss does have a more favorable schedule than Alabama. That's true. That's true. I just, yeah. I mean, who knows? And hey, maybe I could eat these words. Maybe we both make the playoff, play Ole Miss in the playoff and lose. I'm not saying that's impossible.
I'm with you on everything that you're saying. And I also think Alabama deserves the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying that I'm saying Alabama deserves the Bama bump if you want to put them at 5 like CBS does. I'm totally on board. The irony is Alabama and SEC aren't with CBS anymore. They're with ESPN, and I think ESPN's underselling and CBS might be overselling. So that's what's kind of weird. But and maybe they have nothing to do with each other in terms of websites interacting with the TVs or whatever. But if you wanted to just say, okay, look objectively, and Alabama and Ole Miss don't play each other this year. If Alabama and Ole Miss played each other, I think fewer people would have Ole Miss ahead of Alabama. Because I think people would say, yeah, look, maybe even if I think Ole Miss is better, they never beat Alabama. So I'm going to pick Alabama until further notice. That would make sense to me. So I'm thinking, okay, Ole Miss's toughest games are what? At LSU, but I mean, and everybody's not super high on LSU. They're like in the top 15 for most everybody. They're fine. Oklahoma is one of their tougher games. They get them in Oxford. Georgia is definitely their toughest game. They get them in Oxford, and it's late in the season too. There is reasonable people can surmise that Ole Miss could be undefeated headed to Georgia. They go to Wake Forest.
I'm actually high on Ole Miss. I mean, I think they can be. I think they can be really good, and they can be in the playoff. They would have been in the playoff last year. If there's a 12-team playoff, they would have made it. And I think they're even better this year as a team. They have better personnel this year, and Jackson Dart's back, and I'm big on Jackson Dart. I think they're good. I also think that it's still in my mind, Luke, Alabama, Texas, and Georgia. I'm going to assume Alabama, Texas, and Georgia are going to win most SEC road games.
Agreed.
I assume no one else will. Missouri, agreed. Ole Miss, if they can, outside of Vanderbilt, I think Missouri and Ole Miss, who are 2 in vogue picks this year, I think they're in danger of losing to any SEC team they play on the road. They could easily lose any of those games at Kentucky, at South Carolina, at Arkansas, at Auburn. They could easily lose games like that if they're on their schedule. But I do think those are good teams. It's just hard to win on the road in this league. And I think the only teams that can go on the road and win SEC games that I feel comfortable picking them to do that, Georgia, Texas, Alabama, who I still think will be the 3 best teams. I think those will be the 3 best teams in the SEC.
I'm with you.
And I don't even mind saying in that order. Maybe even in that order, Georgia, Texas, Alabama.
And I think that's where everybody's going to have us preseason. And I'm with you on this too. That like the Ole Miss thing, there are some Alabama fans offended by it. They shouldn't be. I kind of get it. I understand it a little bit. If you want to just base it on the schedule and you want to say, hey, Ole Miss has won 10 games in the last 2 years or whatever, and they're on the up. Okay. And Alabama's lost their coach and lost some other people, lost to Caleb Downs or whatever. Okay. I'm with you. It's the Missouri one that gets my goat a little bit because, number one, Missouri's got to come to Alabama. So if you put Missouri ahead of Alabama, I think you're saying
Missouri will beat Alabama.
I think they're going to beat Alabama in Alabama. And I'm like, hey, hold on now. Whoa. Let's all gather our senses.
What was the score when Missouri? What do you remember off the top of your head? What was the score when Missouri played at Georgia last year?
Oh, I mean, Georgia beat them. I mean, it was tight at the half, and then Georgia went on to beat them pretty good.
It wasn't like it was 20-17. Why are people assuming that the Alabama team that beat Georgia, by the way, beat Georgia? Why are people assuming that now Alabama and Georgia aren't on the same plane anymore? I think Missouri at Alabama is probably going to look quite a bit like Missouri at Georgia last year. And that it'll be tight. It won't be a blowout. Alabama's not going to win 42-7. And it might be tight for a while, but I think Alabama wins by 2 touchdowns.
No, they won 30-21. Georgia did.
30-21. Okay.
I thought it was pretty good. I guess I just misremembered. I mean, because I'm so used to Georgia.
I didn't remember it being tight at the end. I mean, I don't remember it going up. This is one that could get away from Georgia.
I thought Missouri had the lead at the half.
They might have. I think 30-20. I'll go right now.
Well, it was tied at the half. It was tied.
If I had to pick the Alabama-Missouri score right now, I would go something like 31-17.
I'm with you on that. All right, we got to get out of here, Jimmy. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.
I just looked up, and it was at 31 minutes, so we had to go.
Hope we didn't. Yeah, I hope we don't lose to Missouri last year and people remember that. We probably don't have a lot of Missouri fans that listen. Probably not too many Missouri people listen to the show, so I'm always worried about my bold predictions that can come back and
wait a minute. I think I'm still recording.
Oh. Well, hello, Missouri fans.
I was still recording. Oh, well, I don't know how to edit that out, so I won't.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm just worried that now that I've picked Alabama to beat Missouri by what, 2 touchdowns? That's not an insane pick, by the way. What would the spread be? If we played Missouri right now, what would the spread be? Black 8 or 9? Don't you think Alabama would be favored by 8 or 9 points?
Oh, definitely. What I'm wondering is why I can't stop this recording.
Maybe our show should not ever end.
It's saying I'm having trouble connecting and it can't stop recording. I don't understand. I did this whole live read about how my dad doesn't know his butt from deep center field. And it won't even let me pause.